Jeremy, welcome everybody. I hope everybody's enjoyed some time off. Um, I know some of you haven't, but hopefully you will get some time off before we start back full speed ahead. We have a lot to talk about today. Let's start with name, image, and likeness because that's new for all of us. Um, Bubba Cunningham and his group have been working really, really hard. He put together a team just to attack name, image, and likeness. And he's done this over the last 2 years, anticipating this. Obviously, our state didn't have a law in place, so it kept us until the last minute before we could get started, where some of the states were better prepared just because they had laws in place and they knew exactly what their regulations were going to be. But you have to start with compliance, because if a young man makes a poor decision and doesn't have it properly approved, he can be ineligible. So we have a hotline, an email hotline that's open at all times for our players, so they can email our compliance office and ask questions about the proper way to handle name, image, and likeness. They also have to start looking at state taxes and federal taxes, and do their parents still have them as a dependent? Because if they make a deal and it's on their parents' taxes and the parents don't know it, then there could be some liabilities later on. So they're having to learn a lot of grown up things here very quickly that they probably wouldn't have learned till they got out of school. There's also a situation where, for those who are on Pell Grant, if you make up to $10,000, when you go over that $10,000 mark, it starts to affect your Pell Grant and decrease it. So we've really worked hard to make sure that our guys understand every finite detail about all of the positives and the concerns. How do you get an agent? We have agents available for them that we can vet, because all the agents have to be certified through the state of North Carolina. So they can't just go grab an agent. They need to know how much money that agent takes out of whatever they make. The marketing agent and the NFL agent have to be two different people. It can be the same company, but it has to be two different people. And they need to understand that somebody might take 20% of everything they get if they get a marketing agent. And if that's the case, then you take your state, your federal taxes, your percentage that you're giving your marketing agent, how much is left? So they're having to learn all of these things, and these are things that are really important for them to know. We've also told them that to make any money with your brand, you're going to have to be a good player. They're going to have to want to see you do something that's going to help represent their brand. Secondly, you're going to have to stay out of trouble. Nobody wants to have advertising with someone that's not doing things right. So you have to graduate. And those things are all important. So don't let your brand get ahead of your ball, because your ball is what's going to lead to your brand. So let's make sure that we're spending sufficient time in the classroom, and we're not letting the name, image, and likeness get ahead of us. The other thing is that we've been looking really, really hard as a group to try to find things that can benefit our entire team, because we feel like that is more beneficial to our team, because the Sam Howells of the world are going to make their deals and they're going to make their money. But the backup right guard, what can we do to help him? And is that through maybe jersey sales? Is that through video games? What can we do to share the money with all of our players? And then that helps your locker room as you look forward. And the other thing we've done is we've reached out to our Chamber of Commerce, because we want all the local businesses in Durham and Chapel Hill and Carrboro to understand what they can do to give opportunities for our players. And they're even meeting on July 13th, and they'll have a briefing with our NIL staff on what they can do to help in reaching out to our players. We've also reached out to the 17,000 plus Rams Club members and gone over the rules with them to let them know exactly what opportunities that they can have available within the rules for our current players. So our staff and everybody's trying really, really hard to make sure that they educate everybody, because this is so new and so different, and the rules kind of change every day. So we're all having to ask each other what fits and what's the best. We had a player meeting the other day with Bubba and the entire his NIL team and our team, so they could ask questions. Then the next day, we had a Zoom with all the parents, and we went over everything with the parents, and they had wonderful questions, because everybody is kind of learning this as you go, and all of that is important for us. And we've got a Compass app that they have to get everything approved through the university to make sure there's not licensing issues with what they're trying to do. Can they wear a logo? Can they say they're a football player at University of North Carolina? One player asked, if I'm on social media, can I have my jersey hung in the background? So there's so many little things that we've got to get answered to make sure that everybody is doing it right. Jeremy always puts down some things for me to talk to you guys about, and I was asked if thought is a good thing. What I would have done is I like amateurism. I like college football the way it was, but Sally helped me and said, all we're doing is allowing the student athletes to have the same privileges as the regular students, because there are no more extra benefits. And that makes sense to me. What I would have rather done is take that money that everybody makes and then give a lump sum to our guys on the way out after they graduate, so they can get their life started, and everybody help brand each other better. That seemed better to me than just guys getting paid as college athletes, or ladies getting paid as college athletes just off their name. But and the other thing that's a little crazy is for young guys to have agents, and they have to be able to make the proper decisions, because if they get that agent and they sign for 4 years, that they've got that agent. And so there's a process that you have to really go through. The other thing is now high school student athletes can get agents. And what does that do moving forward? So there's a whole lot of things that all of us are looking at to make sure that this is in the best benefit to the student athlete, and at the same time doesn't disrupt who he is, his day-to-day life, and his ability to graduate, his ability to still be the great football player that he wants to be, and we need him to be, because a lot of guys aren't going to reap the benefits of this like a lot of people are talking about. It's not something, in my mind, that's beneficial to 120 guys. Some may get a little money, some may get a lot, but I don't think a lot are going to get a lot. And that's what we're looking at moving forward. Recruiting has been crazy in June. We took 15 months of recruiting and put it in 3 weeks. So if you can imagine, we had unofficial visits, we had official visits, we had evaluations, which we've never had before, where a young man could come in and we could work him out for an hour with our on the field coaches. And you've had to have a trainer there too, but we've never been able to do that before. So you all of a sudden went from 15 months of Zooming a person and a family to seeing them walk in your door and get to say hello to them and sit down and visit with them and actually recruit them. And it was amazing. Sometimes you'd say, oh my gosh, he's so much bigger than he looked on Zoom. And then some you may say, he must have been standing on a table. He's not very tall. So it was a great evaluation process for the families and for us in both cases. And we felt like that we were really effective with ours, because recruits are taking all their visits now because they didn't get to visit. The 21s didn't get to visit at all. It was really unfair to them. Now the 22s they want every visit. So there's a lot of them out there that are going to make all their visits, and they're slower to commit because they're enjoying being out and they're enjoying the process. So I do think it will take longer than in the previous years. Our summer workouts are going really, really well. The guys are working harder. They understand we're trying to reach another level. We had a good year last year. We're trying to be great. And to do that, everybody's got to improve by 1%. Everybody's got to step up, do your job, get better, help your team in any way that you possibly can. But they're going really, really well. I love the fact that Coach Hess, our strength coach, has a draft for teams in the summer, and all of the players, the more experienced players, draft their team, and then everything they do, from attending class to a tutoring session, to being on time to meetings, to winning in the performance things that we've got in the weight room, to what you eat and showing up for every meal. All of that counts as points for your team, or points that are taken away. And then there's a winning team at the end of the summer. So it's fun to watch those guys work. And academically, the APR was just released, which is a retention formula, unlike the graduation rates that are 6 years behind. So people don't talk about them much anymore. And I'm very proud that the Carolina football team had a 997 out of 1,000, and that's 23 points higher than any Carolina football team has ever had. So I'm really proud of the way the guys have worked, even through COVID, with all the unusual things that they had to do to go virtual, and they've still done a great job. The last 6 semesters, we've had a team core GPA of 3.167. So it's been over a 3.0, and I'm really, really proud of that as well moving forward. When you start looking at preseason expectations, they're really high. That's a good thing. That means that people liked what they saw us do at the end of last year, and they know there's enough players back that's what we're capable of getting to. So what we're talking about is we have a really tough opener at Virginia Tech, and we divide our season up into different categories. So the only thing we're talking about now are the first 3 games, and that's at Virginia Tech. That's Georgia State at home, which will be the 20th anniversary of 9/11, which will be really special, and then having Virginia at home. So those 3 games are the first phase of the season that we're talking about, and we're not talking about anything past that at this point, because we understand how hard those games will be. Roster management has been different for all of us, because we thought when the NCAA gave every student athlete their scholarship back that wanted it, we thought that the NCAA would give us a number above the cap of 85 next year, and they're not doing that. So what we had to do is sit down with every player, which was probably healthy, and say, if you're not playing next year, if you're not playing a lot next year, will you be in the transfer portal in January to see who possibly will be leaving? We ask, if you're drafted in the first 3 rounds, will you leave? If you're drafted in 4 through 7, will you leave? If you're not drafted and you're a senior, are you leaving anyway? We even ask them, are you planning on opting out of the bowl game if it's not the college football playoff? So we've tried to have really hard conversations with each one of them, because with COVID and with roster management the way it is right now, we need to know how many scholarships we think we'll have available next year. So conversations have been more direct, but we're getting more information than ever before at an earlier time, which I think will really help our team. And we're doing that. As far as the newcomers are concerned, I'd recruit all of them again. Just watching them work out in the summer, they're really talented. Obviously, they're behind the guys that came in January, but they're catching up soon, and summer gives them a great opportunity to do that. Just a couple other dates here that are important. Our players report on August 4th. We'll have our first practice on August 5th. Because of some new rules, we'll be in shorts the first 3 days, and we'll be in shells days 4 and 5, and then we'll be able to start practice in full pads on the 6th. So it'll be a little bit different, and I'm sure Jeremy will have an opportunity for all of you all to come out and watch in those early practices. Those new rules have less hitting in the fall, so there are more shorts, and you have less opportunities for scrimmages. They can't be as long, and you can't do as many of them. We have our Coastal Media Day for the ACC on July the 21st in Charlotte. Our 3 guys that will represent our team will be Sam Howell, Jeremiah Gimmel, and Tamon Fox. So we're excited about those three guys having an opportunity to represent our university's football program and talk about our team. We have a women's clinic set on August 3rd, which is a Tuesday at 5:30. And we're expecting a huge crowd there. And we're very, very close to selling out season tickets, which is a great sign coming off of the very difficult year that all of us had with COVID last year. And so many businesses were hurt. A lot of money was lost and a lot of jobs were lost, and people are still buying season tickets. And I think that shows the excitement that they've got for the fall. Closing here before I answer some questions for you. There's been a 12-game playoff proposal. So we took it to our players and we asked them what they thought, because it's going to affect them more than anybody else. And our players were against the 12-team playoff. They were about even between a 6 or 8-team playoff. And they felt like that each of the conference champions should have an automatic bid. They felt like that the group of five's highest ranked team should have an automatic bid. And then the highest ranked team would take the other few spots if it was an 8-team playoff. Because we always want to know what our players are thinking, because we feel like, again, it's going to affect their life more than anybody else. So questions?
All right, thanks, Coach. We'll start off with Caitlin Schmidt. Caitlin, go ahead.
Hey, Coach. It's Caitlin from the Daily Tar Heel. So you touched a little bit on the name, image, and likeness things already. Could you just tell me a little bit more about UNC's launch program and how it integrates the Department of Athletics Carolina values?
Yes, Jeremy, why don't you're involved in that committee, Jeremy, so why don't you talk about the launch program?
Yeah, I can do that. Want to make sure I can see myself. There we go. Caitlin, we've got a great team that Bubba Cunningham has put together that's made up of, myself, folks in compliance who are working both on the compliance side and kind of a branding side. You've got some other administrators who work with our agent program and kind of get involved in that. So it's really an all-encompassing piece, right? We're using the Compass app to help the guys submit opportunities so they can be evaluated. And mainly that's so that experts can kind of take a look at any language that they may want to make sure they see and are aware of. It's less of an approval process and more of a review process. So it just helps the guys to kind of see what they're being approached with, make sure they're kind of thinking of all the different angles. And then I've had a chance to speak with guys and talk to them. Hey, is this something that you want to put with your personal brand? Is it something you're comfortable with? And we've talked about that for a couple of years, even prior to the name, image, and likeness legislation or lack thereof getting put into place. So it's something the guys have been thinking about, and it's nice to have a team around them because, as Coach Brown always tells you guys, it's about the support that we can provide for them. So we want to make sure they know, hey, if you've got a question, you've got multiple people that you can ask, and we're going to get it into the hands of the right person who's kind of the expert in that area. So from a launch perspective, you've got Compass and you've got Altius who's working with the administration on some things. And then you've got Influencer that we've used to help share content for them, which we can do to help build their brand. But there's also a lot of educational pieces on there as well. Some access to some of the apps that could be potential opportunities for the guys. So we feel like we have a well-rounded group of people supporting the guys. And we're talking, we've talked to them virtually every day with some kind of message. Hey, we're getting this question. We want to make sure all the guys know the question and the answer. So we kind of have a running FAQ that we're putting together and make sure that the guys know where they need to go when those questions arise. Because like us, we're figuring it out as we go, and they definitely are as well. They're getting opportunities and being reached out to by folks that I'm sure plenty of them didn't think they would. So, it's a work in progress, but I think we feel really comfortable as a department that we have the level of support that we want. Now, for everybody on the call, if you have specific kind of more in the weeds questions, feel free to hit us up with them, because like the players, we want to make sure we're getting you guys to the right people. So if there's specific things that you want to ask, feel free to reach out to me reach out to the athletic department and we can get you linked up with the right people.
And Caitlin, we've been very careful as coaches not to get involved with opportunities for the players, because which player do you choose? So we've allowed that to be totally from the name, image, and likeness team that Bubba has put together. And we've got guys like Billy High and Jeremy and Corey Holiday and Chuko. A lot of football people are involved in that process, but we did not want myself and coaches directly involved with looking at opportunities for each player.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caitlin. We'll move to Dina King. Dina, go ahead.
Hey, Coach.
Hey, Dana.
You touched on it a little earlier. How exciting or hectic was June for you and the coaching staff with all the kids coming on official visits, unofficial visits, and et cetera? How exciting, how busy was it? And have you ever experienced a month like this past June before?
No, it was crazy. It was, there was not a minute off. And every day there were kids showing up in busloads and on tours. And there were guys just would call the day before and say, I'm going to run up tomorrow. Can I try out? So the coaches did an amazing job, and our staff did an amazing job of from earliest part of the morning for those first 3 weeks in June till the last day that they could be here, of being available and making sure that on top of thousands of kids at camp, and then a 7-on-7 mixed in with all this that we haven't done in 2 years. It was just an unbelievable 3 weeks with a whole lot of energy. We thought we got a lot done, and now we're basically on back to virtual until that last week in July. And we feel like the last week in July will probably be a lot like that first 3 weeks in June. But we're available to try to help young people get a clear picture of where they should be, and hopefully it's us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move over to Joe. Joe, go ahead.
All right, Coach. I know you guys, in general, coaches, hate distractions, and that's always been a thing, especially for football coaches. So now you have this NIL to deal with, which I'm sure you're very supportive of, but at the same time, you're dealing with all this stuff. So how do you manage that? And also, how does this impact recruiting after what you're seeing, like with Miami now, this gym owner giving everybody on the roster, something? So how does that impact recruiting?
Joe, it's a good question, and one that's probably unanswerable at this time because it's so fresh and new. The thing that we've tried to do is be very direct and fair with our team and explain to them it's about ball before it's about your brand, because unless your ball's good, the brand's not going to be good. So don't forget who you are, and you need to graduate. That's what you came for. And you're going to make a lot more money on the back end with a North Carolina degree than you are while you're in school, unless you're one of those special people. So don't back off of who you are and what you're doing every day with your workouts, with your academics, and trying to find the spot where you can play a certain number of plays on the team. And I think they're hearing that. I do think, Joe, we'll know a lot more in next year's cycle. It won't be as exciting next year because guys will understand it'll balance out, and they'll know who's going to make the money and how they're going to make it and who's going to have the opportunities. And I do think that our players, because of our tremendous fan base and successful fan base, will have more opportunities than some others. So I do think it'll be a positive for us in the long run when we start getting settled down to exactly what that deal means. And again, Bubba and I'd love to see more deals and opportunities for your team. And that the more we can get team-oriented opportunities, the better it helps your morale and your team overall. And we want each young man to brand himself on his way out. We've started a Coleman Institute, and one of the things we're trying to do is make sure that our guys get internships and that they can work with people that might give them jobs when they get out. and those opportunities for our current players would put them in a position where at a time where it's harder to get jobs when you get out, at least they would know some people because of their experiences that might give them an opportunity more readily because of their relationships.
And I'm assuming the answer is kind of the same in terms of how you're going to deal with the jealousy or whatever it is between your Sam Howells and, as you said, your backup, right tackle or whatever. How is that going to play out?
Again, Joe, we're so direct with our team. Everybody knows Sam's a guy, and everybody knows that the quarterback's a guy. And in modern day football, you're not going to win unless you're good at quarterback. And our team knows that. And Bubba had this conversation with our team 2 years ago in the spring. And he said, this is coming and here's what I see. And he pretty much hit on it that day and got it right. And at the end of the session, he said, anybody have any questions? And Sam Howell stood up and says, yeah, I don't like it because the quarterback's going to probably make more money or the star at one other position make more money than the other team. And that's not good. That's not healthy. So I think players understand what it is and they look at it. And guys that aren't playing as much know you better get your degree because you may get an opportunity for a little money here or there, like a regular student, but you're not in a position where you're still going to have to get a job when you get through with this. So don't get carried away with name, image, and likeness because of what you're reading and hearing to a point that you think you don't have to work. Thank you.
All right, let's move to Alyssa. Alyssa, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, when you guys got here, you upgraded all the facilities to state of the art. Since then, you found success on the field. You've been on a tear on recruiting. Can you just speak to the resurgence of this program? And how did the university help you guys set you up for success by giving you the new facilities and the resources you needed to do so?
Alyssa, everybody has been so on board and so positive with us. The Rams Club and Bubba Cunningham have given us money to refresh all the facilities. The indoor area is probably, if not the best in the country, it's in the group. And now we're looking at adding on to a lot of different things to make our facility overall upgraded to as good as anybody in the country. We challenged our fans. They're buying all the tickets. And that's all you can ask fans to do and come and support your team. We've asked for our athletics department to make sure that our salaries are equal with where they should be with our competition across the country. And that they've been able to pay our coaches enough that now when all of them get opportunities every year, they don't run off because we're not paying them the same. So our players have the same experience of any other college football player in the country at the highest level. So anything the NCAA will allow us to do for them, we're doing for them. Even with COVID, we spent so much money trying to keep them safe and keep our facilities clean every day. And so there's not one thing that we're asking for that we're not getting. And what I've promised our people is that I will never ask for anything that doesn't help us win or help the experience of our student athletes. We're not going to waste any money, but when we ask you for something that we really, really need, help us with it because we want to take that next step and we want to be a great team, not a really good team. And to do that, everybody's got to be on board. It's got to be all in and winning's hard. And we're so excited about where we're headed, but we're all talking about it a lot. Now we got to do it. And I think that's important. We've talked to our guys about just look at what the top 10 means. We took Notre Dame to a fourth quarter game, but they beat us down in the end and won. They were number 2 in the country. We took A&M to 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and they beat us down, and they were number 5 in the country. And a lot of people thought they should have been in the playoff. And then we had a big win over Miami, who was 10th in the country. So to be who you want to be, and who everybody is talking about us possibly being, you've got to beat Notre Dame and you've got to beat the A&Ms to show that you deserve to be in that category. And those are really good programs. So we got to quit talking about it and do it.
All right, move to CL Brown. CL, go ahead.
Hi, Mac. You mentioned some of the kind of tough conversations that you've had to have with your players in terms of like roster management and what they may be thinking in the future, and even with the NIL conversations. How is that trust built to where you're asking your guys, okay, you know, if you might be taking 1 through third round in the draft, do you think you might go? You know, like, when do you build up the trust to feel like I can ask them this honest question and I'm going to get this honest answer back?
When you do exactly for them what you tell them you're going to do. They said they needed a new locker room, and I agreed with them. So we got it, and we had their input in doing it. That builds trust. They wanted a new players lounge and a lot of different things in it. We said, write down what you want. We gave it to them. And now we said, now you got to take care of it. You got to keep it clean. You got to use it. Same thing with the food. Coach, we don't like the food. Why? Well, this, that. So Sally and I started eating on the training table every day. What we didn't like, we fixed. So more than turf on the field. The field was bad. We like turf. We put it on there for them. Everything that they've asked us to do, CL, we've done. And that's the way you build trust. So every player that we have talked about, if you're not playing enough and you're angry at your assistant coach, you're mad at me, your parents are mad, I got it. But we still got to play the guys we think are the best. And if you think you are, and we're not doing that for you and you want to transfer, don't get mad. Let us help you transfer. So everybody who has left here, we've been able to place somewhere. So the players understand that we're doing for them what we tell them that we will do. And therefore, they reciprocate by being very direct and very honest with us on the way back. And they know that we're not going to break their confidence.
Side note, this isn't a question, but you had Sally eating at the training table?
Yes. She's Italian. She can cook. So she could tell about good and bad food a lot better than I could.
Thanks, CL. We'll move on to Andrew Jones.
Hey, Coach, with respect to recruiting, how far can you go with outlining either what kids have gotten or what you can tell recruits and their families when they ask questions about NIL moving forward and what opportunities that would be there for them?
Andrew, that's a great question. And that's one that we get more information on every day. And we're trying to use the same process. Our compliance will answer any questions for a high school family because it's harder for coaches because the way I understand it, that we can't use recruiting for opportunities for young guys, but they can get opportunities on their own. So that's a really gray area. So we're trying to make sure that our compliance is involved in every call that we get from a high school player about name, image, and likeness, so they can tell them exactly what goes by the rules. Because again, it would be very unfortunate for a high school player to lose his eligibility because he really wasn't sure about the rules. And this was all kind of thrown on all of us. Here, take it, and let's figure it out. So it's a process. I mean, it's not something that we all have all the answers to. So as Jeremy said, you all call him and he can get you answers. I'm calling in to say, how about this? What can I say in the press conference, and what's legal, what's not? And where is that line? How far can we go? We can encourage our fans, our Rams Club members, and our Chamber of Commerce to help players with opportunities. But what does that mean? And what does that mean for a high school youngster? So all of us are working through that now, Andrew. And it's one reason we waited till now. We wanted to have at least a week or so under our belt so we would have a little bit of an idea what to talk to you about.
Regarding your current roster, what were some of the biggest misconceptions that players and their families had regarding NIL? Some people think you could just give kids money now, but that's actually not it. There's a fairly narrow scope that they still have to operate within.
Yeah, some thought that we would be able to get them opportunities as coaches. Some thought that this just means everybody's going to have opportunities. It doesn't. Some have to ask, what can I be involved with? Because there's licensing things that they can't from the university. Alcohol, gambling, those type things they can't. And what does that mean? If they're signing autographs at a restaurant and they sell alcohol, can they still do that? Or does the alcohol, since they're not promoting it, does that not count? So there's all these questions that players and parents are asking. Big tax questions. What does that mean? How much do agents cost? What are they going to charge you? And where do you get agents? And how do we know if they're licensed? And what process do we go through? Can your NFL agent, if you're an NFL prospect, and your name, image, and likeness agent be the same guy? No, but can it be the same company? Yes. Can they sit next to each other in a room? Well, sure they can. That's what they're going to do, but it can't be the same person. So there's a lot of this stuff that's so gray. Again, with Pell Grant, I had not heard that the limit for the Pell Grant is $10,000 before it starts hurting you with your next step and take some money away from your Pell Grant. So all of these things are really, really important for the players to know. And it gets so carried away because there were very few guidelines given to us that we're all having to figure out. In your own state, it may be different. At your university, it may be different. So take what the NCAA gave us and figure out who that is for us. And that's what we're trying to do for our players.
Sounds good. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And our players have been great to ask. We've got smart players, so that helps us. They understand they have to talk to their parents before they're going to make a deal now, if they're still a dependent. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that our players have learned in the last 8 days that are really helping them.
All right, we'll go to Aaron Beard. Aaron, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, wanted to follow up on some NIL stuff. You made a point of saying that, you guys would like more deals for guys, but you're not getting involved in the minutia, of individual deals. I am curious. You also mentioned local businesses. As someone that's been a part of the Chapel Hill community this time and before, like, how much, I guess, are you, if you're not involved in them, maybe hoping that guys get involved with local businesses to make that connection in that regard?
I would love that, Aaron, simply because the football players are them playing on Saturdays brings so many people into our community, and they help the local businesses so much that I would hope that the local businesses would give some opportunities back to the players. And again, that's being handled by Bubba Compliance and his team. We're not involved with that because that's not our place. We can encourage it, and we'd love to have it, but we're not getting involved with every individual opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Aaron, just to make sure you heard that right, the we is the coaching staff.
Yes.
It's not the department. Obviously, the Bubba and the team are the ones that are kind of doing that correspondence and education. All right, let's move to Andrea Adelson. Andrea, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, thanks for doing this. I wanted to follow up on something you said about the playoff, because I've been interested in player perspectives because we haven't really heard from them about it. What sense did you get from the players when you talked to them about expansion, about why they were not in favor of 12?
Andrea, I'm speaking for them, and I probably shouldn't because they should be able to speak for themselves, and maybe Jeremy can get some of those guys to talk about it. The sense I got was that 17 games is a lot, even though there's others that are playing that, and the NFL's playing it. I also got the fact that they wondered if there's 8 teams good enough to win the national champion. 12 teams good enough to win the national championship if you go back and study it each year. And I thought that was an interesting point from them. because they wanted the playoffs to be about who is good enough to win all the games or win the national championship, not just have a bunch of teams involved. I also asked them if bowls started paying you like the playoffs for the parents to come, would you have as many opt-outs? And I think they felt like that if a guy's opting out for a lot of money for the NFL, he's probably going to opt out anyway. So it was more of a combination of an hour-long discussion where I could give information back to Bubba about what I was hearing from the guys that would be playing.
And as a follow-up to that, it just feels like we're headed to 12. So from the player perspective during your discussion, even though they don't like the idea, how did they feel about the fact that it's probably going to happen?
Well, I told them that, but I also said that we need more inclusion, in my opinion, with athletes that are playing, and we need more inclusion from the coaches that are coaching it. So the voice needs to be heard, and who knows, decisions aren't finalized yet, but I did think it was important. Our commissioner wanted reactions from our players. I thought that was good. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody understands what the thoughts of everybody are when we go into such a huge jump from 4 to 12 instead of just having it happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. I wish we'd had more discussion about name, image, and likeness. I wish we'd had more discussion about transfer portal. I wish we'd had more discussion about giving everybody their scholarship back for an extra year. And all of those things happen so quickly, Andrea, and that's not the normal sense I get from the NCAA. So I would hope that we would slow down and make sure that this is best for everybody.
Well, and I also, since you brought it up, it felt like the players didn't really have a voice in the process. So that's why I'm interested to hear what you had to say, because you would think that they would want to hear what players have to say about expanding all the way to 12.
Yes, and hopefully that process will happen, because our commissioner did ask me to ask our team.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea. We'll go over to Greg Barnes. Greg, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, I had a question about roster management. You mentioned it looks like the NCAA is not going to extend that 85 scholarship cap beyond this year. That would seem to squeeze the 2022 recruiting class, while also, because of the extra year that NCAA granted last year, you've probably got somewhere, 50 freshmen essentially in place for this year. So when you look out a couple of years and you're so heavy with underclassmen, how do you try to manage that from a roster management angle?
Greg, it's been crazy. And what year are they? How does Jeremy list them? Is he a 6-year senior? I mean, is he a super senior? What does that mean? So we sat down as a staff and we did two things that I think helped us. We put down their academic status. How many years, when does he graduate? Because we want every player to graduate. And then we put how many years of eligibility. So he might graduate in December of 21 and have 3 years left of eligibility. So what does that make him? He's a senior academically, or he's a graduate, but he has 3 years left. It's just crazy. So we're trying to go back to his eligibility status with his academics. And that's what we're using, and keeping him on the same level of years of eligibility that he had before the NCAA gave the extra year back. And then if we want him to stay after graduation, and he wants to stay, and he's helping us, then we would go ahead and obviously let him stay for a 5th year or a 6th year. If he's graduating, not playing, and he's got 3 years left, that's even better for him if he wants to get in the transfer portal, because he's not playing much here. It would give him an opportunity to play extra years somewhere else. So that's the way it's back to that really direct conversation again. And the other part of that is, do you get 2 graduate degrees? I mean, if you're already in graduate school and you've got another year or maybe 2 years, when do you run out of the things you can take? So it's just the whole thing has been absolutely crazy, and it's making us all think out of the box to see what's best for your team. And you're right. 3-4 years from now, are you going to have 10 seniors because that's all you could recruit? And then if 3 of those leave, do you have a class? I mean, so that's what we're all looking at right now.
Thank you.
I had to ask our coaches the day before the last day of the transfer portal, are we going to have any surprises? Anybody leaving, or anybody heard anybody's leaving, or are we okay? And nobody left, which was great. But our players have been so honest that I would have been surprised, but you still don't know.
Thanks, Greg. Go to Adam Smith. Adam, go ahead.
Hey, Mac, this is out of left field a little bit, but it's for kind of a project over the longer term. If I could take you back to the 80s and 90s, when you were there, when you were at UNC for the first time, in recruiting, are there guys, two or three guys that you got that you can look back on now and point to them being sort of program changers or changers in what you were building there? Some guys that sort of helped you get there quicker than you might have could have been?
Yeah, Adam, I'll miss some. So this is always really dangerous. But if you just look at Tommy Thigpen, Corey Holliday, Rick Steinbacher, those guys were all on the same team early that helped us win. Natrone Means and Randy Jordan, they were both program changers. And then Jason Stanisak stepped up as a young quarterback, and then he beat Charlie Justice all-time yardage record. So those guys in the early years were just guys that jumped out. Kevin Donnelly was a transfer, but he was one of the best linemen that we've ever had at the university. And all of those guys, except Randy Jordan, are back on our staff. So they've meant so much to us as you start looking at it. And they're guys like Bucky Brooks had great speed, and Tommy Smith was a first-round draft choice as a corner that actually walked on. And then as you get into the latter part, whether it Leon Johnson was a great player. We had the Johnson boys at one time. Then you started looking at some of those defensive players we had. I think, and Jeremy could check this for you, that 19 of our defensive players were drafted off of the first 2 teams at some point my last year there. So you're talking about Brian Simmons and Greg Ellis and Ryan Sims and Dre Bly. And I mean, just time and time again, great players that were all first-round draft picks that played so much. Fonnie Holiday was a great player from South Carolina that came in. So all of those guys really made a difference in who we were.
What were you trying to sell in 88, 89, when some of those years were lean years? Like, what were you saying? What was the pitch?
I've told all those guys that came, you must have been really stupid because you had opportunities all over the country. What we were selling is you have a chance to come in and help us immediately. And we're still selling the same stuff. Chapel Hill's a wonderful place. We have a great education for you here. It's an opportunity for a lifetime for you. And that's why we sell the 40-year decision instead of the 4. But at the same time, come and help us win. And those guys went from 1-10 to beating Mississippi State in the Peach Bowl. So they were really the group that got us started more than anything else. Thanks, Adam.
Boy, Coach Dre is going to be so disappointed. He was like the number 52 guy you mentioned.
Well, those front lines still more important than Dre. As Dre says, when you've got guys that can rush the passer, those corners don't have to cover near as long.
All right, let's move to Gregory Hall. Gregory.
Max, as you said, the focus is those first 3 games of the season, Virginia Tech, Georgia State, Virginia. I'm just curious what your focus will be during camp as far as kind of what you want to see to kind of set the tone for the whole season, maybe specifics that you want to see out of certain guys or position groups, obviously with the goal to win, but just kind of what you wanted to see out of your guys to set the tone for the season.
Greg, it sounds like a broken record, but depth, quality depth. I want to finally, in our third year, get to a point where we can roll some people, especially in both lines of scrimmage, without seeing any drop off at all. And that's really, really important for us to get the next step. I thought we did get beaten down in that fourth quarter by the two top 5 teams that we played, and we can't do that. The second thing is special teams. I want to start winning games on special teams. We've been middle of the pack. We've been okay for 2 years, but I want us to do what I envisioned when I was out of coaching, that one of the great advantages you can have as a college football team is special teams if you're really good at it, because not a lot of people are consistently good at it. And that's something that I feel like the depth adds to as well. But I would say those two things would be the most important thing. Thirdly, we have to get more clear about who the backup quarterback is for Sam. Who are the running backs that you're working with, and who are the wide receivers that you're working with? Because we've got numbers, but we don't have experience in some of those guys, and we've got to separate them and make sure that we cut it down to who we need to be working with to go to Virginia Tech.
And I was curious how you plan on handling the freshmen that weren't early enrollees. Because obviously with guys like Keyshawn Silver, Drake May, just kind of focus on, you're talking about learning how to practice and all of that stuff. Then these guys are getting here and you haven't even really seen them work out or been able to, with the team, obviously player leds if they're here, things like that. Just kind of what's your focus with those guys and getting them ready to play come September?
You've got to hope that your seniors, your older guys, your leaders will help those guys understand number one, the level that we're going to expect them to compete at 100% every play. There will be no lazy steps. There won't be any loafing. You can't put your hands on your hips. You can't bend over. So that's different because they were the best player on their high school team. And how do you learn to practice? So the older guys will watch video with them and show them, here's how we practice and here's what they're going to expect of you. And then we think that'll be a huge step between now and then before we get to start coaching them. I was disappointed that the NCAA is not going to let us have the walkthroughs that we had last year, because I thought that was so good for the incoming guys that missed spring practice and gave them opportunity to learn a lot more before that first day of practice. And now they'll pretty much have to catch up on the run. Thank you.
Hey gang, I set this for an hour, so I'm a little concerned that it's gonna just automatically cut off at noon. I'm in the process of, if it does happen, sending y'all an updated link. So we'll just keep moving through it, and if we get cut off, go to your email and we can pop back on. Kara, go ahead.
Hi, Coach. How are you?
Great, Kara.
Good. I just want to know, how are you adjusting to all of these new rules and learning all of these new things? Because going through your entire career and now the playing field has changed, how have you adapted? And what's been your thoughts so far?
Kara, it's a great question. It's really interesting. It keeps your mind moving, but at the same time, regardless of your thoughts on some of these rules, they're real, they're here. So it's my job to educate myself and our staff at a very high level of energy so we can make sure that our guys have the best opportunity of anybody in the country to take advantage of these rules. So in a way, it energizes you to make sure that you're staying up and that you want to study every minute of every day and ask questions and look at exactly where the transfer portal is and where's it going. Exactly what is name, image, and likeness, and how can these guys gain opportunities as a team, as an individual, and what can we do to help them with internships and better prepare themselves. So I do think that as I look back at it, Kiera, guys will be more prepared because of name, image, and likeness. And they've already talked about agents. They've already talked about marketing. They've already talked about their brand. They've already had to clean things up on their social media if it wasn't all in great shape. They are understanding at a very early age what taxes mean and what percentage that is. They wouldn't have thought about taxes until they got out and had their first job. Or the guys now with the NFL market, they're going to know what percentage of that money is going to come out, and they're going to look at the NFL a lot differently than they did. So I really think that it's good that it's here and it's real, and there's no reason to sit around and gripe about it. Let's go to work, and we're trying to balance all of that at the same time, and being honest and fair with recruits and your players with roster management, like Greg was talking about. It's different. It's unique, but it's real, and it's here. And I was very vocal about changing it so we would be able to sign maybe 20 or 25 guys again this year, and there was no interest. So I hate it for the 22s. The 21s lost their official visits. The 22s are losing opportunities, and that's in every sport. It's not just football. But instead of griping about that stuff, let's make it fit the best for our guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll go to Chapel Fowler. Chapel, go ahead.
Yeah, much like my coworker Adam, you caught me on kind of a project type question. When did you kind of realize in your coaching career that Virginia's Tidewater 757 region was such a fertile recruiting ground? And how has that region kind of, aided both of your tenures here in North Carolina, obviously back then, and then now with Dre leading the process over there?
Chapel, the way I remember it is that when North Carolina has been good, we've had great players from Virginia Beach, and that's forever. That was Coach Dooley, and that was Coach Crum, and the names of those guys just keep going on. Dwight Hoyer's a guy I didn't mention before, but he was a great linebacker and two-time captain for us that's working for us now. So we've really counted Virginia Beach as an in-state area. It's close to home for us. There's great athletes there, and there's always been interest in our school. So we feel like that is such a key area for us that, as I said, we recruit it like it's in-state, but it's always been that way. And I know with you doing the research, me remembering the great names, I just, whether it's Amos Lawrence or Mike Voigt, there's Lawrence Taylor. You just start looking at names, and William Fuller, and there's just check marks of guys that came out of there that were not good players here. They were great players here. And that's why we've got to go back and reestablish that is a really important place for us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll go to Art Chansky. Art, go ahead. Art, you still with us?
I can't get on me. I am now. Okay. Hey, Mac, hope you and Sally are doing well.
Thank you, Art.
Back closer to the election, you talked about having some hard discussions or player discussions, about either with the coaches or among themselves and all that. And even though it's more of a local thing now, and with all the NIL stuff, was there a need to go back and have any conversations about what happened locally with the tenure controversy here?
No, Art. In fact, we haven't had team meetings much since then. It's been more focused on name, image, and likeness. And I have.
Them coming to you, I know you probably.
Yeah. They always come to me with everything, and that's a healthy thing. I get texts and calls all the time, and can you help me with this? Can you explain this to me from a lot of different things? And what I've been very, very careful to do, Art, at my older age is make sure that I'm trying to stay in my lane and do the things that I know and that are what I was hired to do. And then if there's information that some other players would like to have, I try to get them to the right people so they can explain anything that they want to know from people who have that information.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we'll wrap up with another one from Joe. Joe, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, just wanted to ask you about Desmond Evans. Just can you talk about his growth and just kind of where you see him fitting into your program going forward?
Yes, Joe, Desmond's gained so much weight. He's like 265, 270 now, where he was 235 when he got here. And he's learning how to pass rush at a very high level, because again, to get where we need to get, you're going to be playing against the best tackles in the country. And most of our sacks so far have been scheme sacks. And another thing that Gregory asked about that we would try to emphasize in preseason is finding the person, the guy who can get a sack without having to have it schemed. Who can beat somebody? Who's going to have to draw a double team, which hurts their passing game? And we feel like Desmond's one of those guys. So we're excited about watching him in the fall. You've got to remember, he didn't get to come in early and go through spring. The summer was different with COVID. It was delayed and much different. And then he got sick. It wasn't COVID, but he had to miss a couple of weeks when he first got here. So he really got behind. So we feel like that it's time for him now to step up. We saw flashes last year. We think he can be an every down player now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, thanks everyone. It was good to see and hear from everyone. Look forward to seeing as many of you as possible down in Charlotte for Media Day. For those that are interested, I'm going to try and work to get some assistant coaches